Are at the 2 o'clock hour, so we do like to get started on time. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Just please know that we may have a few other folks that join us. And if you're not speaking, it's always helpful if you just put yourself on mute. And then just remember to unmute if you'd like to say something, or use the chat feature, which is, of course, at the bottom of your screen. If you scroll down to the bottom and hit the little talk button there, says chat, you can actually type in it. Rebecca does a great job of continuing to add comments or suggestions throughout the conversation, but feel free to ask your questions there also. As all you know, my name's Sue Gordon. I'm the Chief Operations Officer for Quillow, and joining us is the rest of the Quillow team. We have Kisa, who's with us. Give us a big wave, Kisa. And we've got Rebecca up in Minnesota, and then John, of course, who's also with us here in Indianapolis. So we're glad to have you guys with us. We do record these sessions. We have a number of folks that unfortunately are not able to make it, so we do send this out as part of our follow-up, usually on Fridays, or we catch you on Mondays with a nice follow-up note. So to kick us off today, we're just going to follow through on this agenda here. We're going to share our little good news. And again, if anybody else has any good news to share, we'd love to hear your stories. And then we're going to get into a little conversation around growing the Quillow experience. We know that using technology sometimes takes a little effort to get that in your organization, to get people to maybe using a different tool. So we're going to share some opportunity to be able to do that and grow the Quillow experience in your organizations. We'll give you an update on the push notification and where that stands, talk a little bit about our self-care and some key videos there. And then we'll wrap up and tell you about our guest speaker for our December program. So that's where we're heading. And again, I want to welcome everybody across the nation. The states that are in teal are where we have folks located. So again, today I know we've got people from Pennsylvania as well as California today, Indiana, Wisconsin, so Minnesota. Great to have everybody. So thanks for being with us. Okay, so to get us kicked off, I'm going to actually turn it over to John, who again is probably one of the best storytellers I know. He's going to talk a little bit about some good news.
Well, I want to welcome everybody. It's so great to have everybody here, and to again thank you for all you're doing to make the workforce experience better for the people in your organization. I wanted to tell you that shared the story of the Good News Bench, and he decided that one of the key questions that he needed to find out is, where is our own good news within the organization? So we created a virtual good news bench, because so much of what we're doing now is virtual. But it was actually a bench that is in his office. And as people come in, they want to sit on that bench and just share something really good that was happened. Because one of the things he found is so many times people came in to talk over a problem. And so his rule was, you come into us virtually or in person, we're going to sit on this good news bench and talk about something really good that's going on before we dive into this problem. And after about a week or two, the first week people were saying, really? Justin, you're going to make me sit on this bench and say something good? And then people started dropping into his office and just sitting on the bench and saying, hey, I just got to tell you something very cool. So when they come out of the pandemic, they want to start putting these good news benches everywhere throughout the organization, in homes, and have a chance to get that moment to share something good that's happened. And I asked him, what is one of the stories that really resonated with you? And he said, what's amazing is I had so many to pick from, because people started looking for something good that was happening that they could share. And he told the story of one of their homes where one of the staff, they no longer could sing in their church choir, and that was something they loved doing. So they started a Sunday morning singing group, and they all stood way away from each other and just started singing together. And the staff member became the choir director. And they said they sang terribly, but they had such fun doing it. It became their good news that they shared to get through this. So think about the idea of the good news bench, virtually or in person, about how we can force ourselves to look for the good things that are happening. Well, and a lot of you have asked us, what can we be doing to help grow the Quillo experience? And last month, we shared with you the stories of 4 of our top users of what they found by using Quillo. And if you recall, here's 4 of the quick quotes that we had from folks that we began looking at. You know, that people enjoyed hearing the stories from people with disabilities. They felt that their organization cared about them by providing us tools. And some like just getting a fresh breath of air in the moment or a way to start the day. So when we talk about growing the experience, we're really talking about not just increasing views, but increasing the experience and that feeling of connection with folks. So if we want to reach more people and get them involved, we wanted to talk to you about one of the it's been a law called the law of diffusion of innovation, or the law of adoption of technology, that's been around for over 40 years. And this is important as we start thinking about your organization, about how people will take on something like Quillo. So early on, you'll have the innovators, that the small number of people that want to try anything, they want to be part of it. And then you have your early adopters, those folks that are looking for something that'll make things better in their experience. One of the things about the study of this is that change within your organization doesn't come when you hit the top of the curve. It comes when you hit this early adopters peak of about 16% of the folks that are begin experiencing a different change. So as you look at Quillo and its impact in your messages within the organization, the studies will show we start achieving positive change at about 16%. And then we work on getting this early majority people that are the next round that you want to bring in, and then the late majority folks. And then lastly, you got about 15%. And no matter what the technology is or the innovation, you have about 15% that just will never take advantage of it. So what does that help us as we think about each of you in your own organizations? So if you look at this, one of the goals that we would suggest you start thinking about where you're at now on utilization and where do you want to be, and begin thinking about, and Rebecca, you could start putting those up. We want to connect to the why, and we want people to have this greater job satisfaction and appreciation, bring about those better relationships and higher retention, and look at where we want to get from our current utilization to where we want to be in 6 months. And it takes time and effort to bring that curve moving along for each organization, and each one's a little bit different. But again, key to looking at it is getting to that 16% and then moving into your early majority, where you're now getting 50% of folks and more people talking about it. So we pulled together from some of our best success stories from folks some quick tips. And one of has a very full week, and is based around the idea of how you can grow your user base in just 15 minutes a day. And we're going to talk about things that come from our tips for increasing Quillo engagement, which is one on the resource page for us. But we're going to dive in a little bit deeper onto about 7 of these specific tasks that you can do. So the first one is, one of the things we've heard from our users is they really enjoy hearing from the leadership of the organization. They feel more a part of it when in Northeast Pennsylvania, they hear it from Frank, or in any one of your organization, they hear from the leaders. So how do you do that? One is you ask your leadership for 5 minutes a week to go in and record a specific message they'd like to get out to staff. One of the things that you do is you might want to say to folks, and you ask your CEO, they say, what do you want me to talk about? Made the suggestion to one of our subscribers and they really liked it. They said, if you had the opportunity to spend a couple of minutes with somebody the day before they thought about quitting, what would you say to them? And he said that would be easy. I'd tell them how important they are and how they're making a difference. And this is a really challenging time, but you're doing a great job. And I said, there's your first video to send out to folks. What would you say to somebody on the day before they thought they were going to be quitting? And it's not like we know that day, but then you break down that barrier. So again, recording short messages from your leadership that go out to folks. So the next topic that we could do as we begin looking at it, again, sharing those positive stories and recognizing the good things getting done. The good news bench, if you will. How do we find those stories? So here, our task would be in 15 minutes a day, get our supervisors, catch someone doing something great. So much of our workday is looking at solving problems. What is it that you find people doing well and you share that? So those positive stories become a way of setting the norm for how we want people to do. The singing the choir on Sunday mornings in their living room in opposite corners, just being a fun way to say how they turned something that they lost, the ability to go to church and sing in the choir, into something fun that everybody enjoyed. When you ask people to start looking for the good news, it changes fundamentally their mindset. Problems we're going to solve, how we find people doing something good. Shannon said something early on as she got on early. Their agency is actually growing during this time because people are hearing about them and coming to them for their inclusive activities. There are good news to share out with folks about why people are doing it. So another 15 minutes a day looking to catch somebody doing something great. Our next one is, how do we remind people about the why? So as we think about this, what could we do in 15 minutes to share stories about the why? Here's where the people you support and their families can remind staff of why they're so important. Sue and I happened to be on with a friend of ours that we're helping begin to think about their daughter who's had kind of a tough time. And we're using the Charting the Life course framework with them and looking at celebrating how she's doing so much better. And one of the things the dad said, he loves the staff. They've got so much. One of them has become very important to his daughter. And he called up the executive director of the agency just to tell her how well Brittany is doing with his daughter. And you know what the executive director said? I don't get many thank you calls like this. Almost always it's somebody calling me with a problem or a complaint. The same thing's true with our staff. How can we take that message from a dad, from a person you support, record that, and get that out to staff to remind them about the why? At a time when you can't see everybody, it's an important way to do this. That why can come through in a lot of different ways. I had a chance to talk to a friend who'd moved to Arizona. They had lived in Indiana and was served by one of our subscribing agencies. And he talked about how much they remembered, and his son Christopher remembered the staff person back at Stonebelt that helped Christopher grow and get to be where he's at today. And so I emailed that staff member. He also is on Quillo. If you want to search on the app for Tyler Frazee, you'll find some of his videos that he's done. Now he's been gone 6 years, and they still remember how he worked with Christopher. Short stories out from the people you support remind folks about their why. Another topic to use in 15 minutes is this idea of word of mouth is powerful. Who are your Quillo champions? Who are your people that really get it? And let's think about how we share that in just a few minutes each day. So one of the ways, and we'll look at this as a task, is create a Quillo Buddy program. Sometimes people in those innovators and early adapters can be your best ambassadors to tell others. So if you're watching it and saying, here's a really cool video, call, email, or text to one of your coworkers that may not be on the app, but maybe haven't seen that, and said, did you see this in this great story from Mrs. Johnson talking about how important everybody is to her son, Ben? Creating that buddy program and helping get people to see the idea of how this can help them, and it's just not one more thing to be able to do. So somebody saying, take a look at this if you haven't already, it's a great thing that it really helps me through my day. So there's some, and we want to go to the next one now. One of the ideas that came out is the idea of a Friday 5-minute film fest, that you pick a time and say, we want to watch these 5 videos for 5 minutes on Friday. And you maybe pick a time like 10:10 in the morning, 10:10 at night, or a time that works for everybody, and say, we just want to watch 5 together, and you send this out to people and figure out how to get this in front of folks so they start introducing some of these ideas within their staff that are together, the people they support. So a Friday 5-minute film festival, say it fast 10 times in a row and you'll screw it up like I just did. But the idea of how do you focus on a moment to say, isn't this kind of interesting? And you can pick a topic and share, here's 5 videos. So if we're going to do something about hydration or how to be prepared, we just did a series we released about how to be prepared for a natural disaster. We have folks down in Louisiana and California dealing with issues around evacuation. How do we share a story? Or maybe you do 5 videos around a specific topic you want to share and do it in your 5-minute film festival on Friday. Again, we're not asking you to do all of these every day, but think about that. So the last one I want to do is, it gets into this question of, these are tough times right now. These are challenging times for folks. And we all have known somebody who has gotten ill. We have known people that are really down because they can't do what they're doing. So as we think about recording our messages, think about doing a heartfelt message that is designed to just support and go out to your folks that you know how tough this is right now. We have families that can't have their kids go back to school. Some are going back and they're worried about them. Some have family members who have lost their jobs and they're really struggling. A heartfelt message from the agency saying, we know that, and perhaps there are resources you have available to them that can help them, can be a great way of getting that out. It doesn't always have to be profound, but as long as it's heartfelt, it becomes a way of getting that across to folks and acknowledging this is a really difficult time right now. So as we move forward and begin looking at that, we've been thinking about, you can't do all of this in 15 minutes a day, but you can ask people, how are we doing? And do a quick survey. And do this in a way that asks 2 or 3 questions, link it back to your own website or a Google Doc. And if you don't know how to do that, Rebecca can teach you how to do that offline. But it's a key difference asking the question, how are we doing, as opposed to how are you doing? Because when I ask you, how are you doing, I'm kind of putting the onus on you. And your first reaction is, well, Justin, thanks for asking, but I'm fine. When indeed, I may not be so fine. But if I ask the question, how are we doing? That allows people to share and start opening up a little bit more. So doing a quick survey begins getting some feedback from folks and begin designing, what do we do about that? What is it we can be doing more to support you? What do you need? What are some things that you're concerned about right now? So a survey becomes something you could design, and Rebecca's already put some tools in there that'll help you do this. So as you look at these different ideas, don't try to do all of them, but pick one or two and begin exploring those and begin bringing those two into your folks as you begin looking at it. It's more than just increasing the number of views. It's improving the relationships. And from our data on user groups of studying over 500 users 2 different times, we found that if people are watching 3 to 5 videos a week, 42% report that improves the relationship with their supervisor, and 72% report it improves the relationship with the people they support. That's what we're asking you to spend 15 minutes a day on, not just a number on the number of views. It is all about relationships and support staff. Thinking about knowing what's going on with them, what are your overall goals, where do you want to be with your organization? And Quillo becomes a powerful tool that moves you along with that. And it starts with just 15 minutes a day. And you can do that by setting an appointment with yourself for a 15-minute segment every day to begin doing this. I know that's hard because in our days, we get filled up and all of a sudden everything's gone and your list of things you wanted to get to. So set on your calendar and just mark 15 minutes to begin working on this and begin carrying it through with each of your folks.
John, can I add something just real quickly about setting that time?
Sure.
Whether you're setting the time for yourself or thinking back to the one on the Friday 5-minute film fest, whatever it might be, sometimes it's fun to pick sort of obscure times that people might go, what? Why are we meeting at 12:34 or something? 1, 2, 3, 4, something that is kind of out of the ordinary. One of my favorites. This is super silly. If you can picture 10:10 on a clock, right? The hands are like this. That's a happy time, right? If next time you're in a store or something, look at the clocks. They are probably all set to 10:10 because if I buy that clock, that's optimistic. So something as silly as that, might trigger, well, it's 10:10. That's the happy time. I'm gonna, check out Quillo, whatever it might be. So.
Great. Thanks, Rebecca. Any questions or reactions from folks as we think about how you could use some of these in short blocks of time to begin moving forward and building you along that curve of greater participation and greater impact with your organization? And don't be shy. Great. Okay. Well, let's move on. What I want to do now is hand it over to Sue because we have another tool in the resource guide that begins to take this and create a little worksheet for you of how you can begin implementing this and begin thinking about rolling this out and continuing to increase your utilization.
Yeah.
Sue?
Yeah, thanks, John. So one of the things that we like to do is to try to figure out tools or resources that allow you to just go out, pick the tool out of our resources off our resources webpage. And again, if Rebecca, you can put that in the chat, it's myquillo.com/resources. This is one of the tools that we have out here. It's called the Quillo Utilization Curve, okay? It talks about you. So as a champion of Quillo, one of the things that it has to happen is it has to start with you. You've got to find that 15 minutes or that time frame to be able to say, what are we really trying to accomplish? And so we start out here, it begins with you. And if you look at the red box there in the left-hand column, it gives you just a very quick statement to think about. How many minutes in a day can I commit to building a new habit? I don't know about you, but if you're like me, if I want to do something different in my life, I've got to break old habits, because we are people of routine. We get up at many times at the same time, you know, we get dressed in a certain way. I know I get my daughter up next, and boom, we've got a schedule, and it's scheduled out. And so there's habits that I pick up. And if I want to do something new, I've got to say, what habits can I break, and how can I maybe make a new habit? So for instance, if I want to start using Quillo in a little different way, what are some things that I can do? One is, and again, it's about retention and wanting to use Quillo to build the retention of your organization. So think about the habits. Maybe it is, hey, I'm going to set aside every Friday, I'm going to go out and I'm going to search quotes on the internet, because I can use those quotes to then maybe build a cool message for my folks. That's a new habit that you can do. What about trying some, going out and searching video messages? I'm going to go search on Quillo and look at what are some of the themes that the Quillo library has that I can put a new twist on to maybe use that, so that our messages can help, again, provide the type of messaging we want so that we retain our staff. The other habits that you can do are things like just setting aside time to send out a quick thank you note to someone. Setting aside time to perhaps have a quick visit with a new hire that comes on board, or a phone call with them to welcome them to the organization. But it has to start with, what are you going to do differently? Because if you want to retain individuals, it's about using the tools, the resources, and yourself with new habits of what you're going to do to then expand that and grow that a little differently. The other thing that we talk about is enlisting champions. One of the things that we do find is that if you're out there by yourself, trying to come up with, you know, the messages you're going to send by yourself, it's always more fun in groups. So identify maybe 3 key influencers and think about those individuals that really have that desire. They like to use technology. They like to have fun. They, again, are not shying away from getting themselves on a video. Enlist those type of individuals in your organization to say, hey, will you help me continue to encourage and support this program? I think finding champions is a critical element of being able to, again, get yourself on the utilization curve in order to reach your retention goals. Okay. Then it's about creating those strong and positive messages. Again, think about what were the last messages that our folks have heard. You know, was there an email that went out? Was there something that took place in the organization that we want to make sure we emphasize? So try to plan for that. One of the things that we have is we do have another tool in our resources page that actually is a video planning tool. And what I like about it is that each month it gives you kind of the themes of that month. For example, in October, it's an employment month. So raise that awareness about employment. It's also Down Syndrome Month. So again, can you use that tool to raise the awareness? but I think it's getting ahead of the ball game and planning out what it is that you want to do, so that you're not thinking at the last minute, but trying to work a couple months in advance. Maybe there's a key program. We're entering into the fall season. What type of things are changing for your organization right now in the months of October, November, December? It's the last quarter of the year. Maybe use themes like that to be able to identify what are those strong and positive messages we want to continue to share with the people that we have. And then finally, it's about building better relationships. And again, identify, this is about a habit, identify 5 employees that you want to reach out to get to know better. And make it a habit then of saying, okay, every day I'm going to take 15 minutes, going to give them a phone call, say hello, welcome them to the organization, find out a little bit more about them. And again, when you have those type of conversations, that's what might register for a key message that you can use to maybe share with someone else. So those are some, I guess, very planful ways that you can use the utilization curve. Think about what are we doing to retain our employees. What we do find is that many organizations may not have a good handle on what their retention really is. And so this bottom portion of this particular slide, we talk about measuring your increased retention. And how do you do that? So it's about identifying the group that you want to really focus on. When you're starting this, what is your retention at that moment in time? And then again, starting to mark and identify what's been happening with that group in 1 year increments, what's happened in 3 months, what's happened, the next 3 months. So you've set a goal for that year as to what you want to try to shift. And again, this is just a very quick tool, starts to put some numbers to it. If you haven't, as an organization, really sat down and looked at your turnover, again, this might be a good way to kind of get started in terms of doing that. So this tool, again, is out on our resources page. If you want to be a little bit more planful, I know for myself, sometimes I get ideas and I'm always kind of like, well, where do I even start? This might be a tool that can help you kind of put some action to really moving some things forward and changing maybe what you're doing a little differently to try to help continue to retain your staff. So
one of the things, Sue, if I could jump in on that bottom chart, this was actually one of our subscribers that talked about. They had a problem with new hires leaving within the first 60 days. So they were only getting 40% of their new hires to stay 60 days. So they wanted to do a campaign to say, okay, what can we do to up that to 60%? So we want to flip that at least 60% stay. And so they started focusing on this. And what they realized is they gave them a lot of attention and orientation and then kind of put them out with the job, and they weren't following through on them. So they began using Quillo as well as other tactics to begin working on that, and then measured how they were doing over the course of each quarter on those folks staying. And one of the key ones they found is that better relationships. They use that 5 employees I can encourage and get to know. So they took that new class and broke them up. And once a week, everybody in that class got a call from one of their teams that had been part of their orientation. And it was just really exciting because the first thing when they got the first call, the first thing they asked is, am I in trouble? That I'm trying to do a good job. Am I in trouble? And they said, no, you're not in trouble at all. We're just checking to see how you're doing. And they raised their retention up to over 60% as they began working on that problem, as opposed to the earlier view of it is they blamed the people for what they were doing. The other thing is, Rebecca is just working on a new series with an agency out of Washington, D.C. Interesting thing on retention and recruiting is they hired one of their people they supported. Person with an intellectual disability, had been with the agency for years, is now a full-time employee of their agency And he is their #1 recruiter of new DSPs. And he's also one of their main trainers for their DSPs when they go through orientation. And it's not all about the paperwork and the do's and don'ts. It's how to become a better part of a person's life. So think about that dynamic of the recruiter who's now making a professional salary, working as somebody who is still getting supported by the agency, but to a much lesser degree. But he's a full-time employee. And how does he, and Rebecca can share a little bit more about Robert. We're going to do some videos with Robert. But I just thought, what a brilliant idea to engage folks in the why of what they're doing as a trainer. Rebecca, anything you want to share about Robert?
Yeah, so I actually just connected with their team this morning. We'll be recording shortly here, so be able to hear from him directly. But his training, they do, I think they said it's a 5-day orientation. Some of that is now online and some is still in person. But they have what's called the DSP Academy. And Robert is one of the trainers, and he helps focus on talking about quality of life, what that means, and building friends and relationships. So those are the portions that he specifically helps train on. Yeah, it's a neat program. So they're also doing their first Spanish-speaking cohort coming up with their next recruitment. So it'll be a 6-week training with some folks there. So, yeah.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, John. I just want to kind of open it up. What ideas, what things are your organizations doing to continue to think about retention in your organizations? And again, shift the needle towards being able to retain folks. Other ideas from any of you? I know you're all leaders out there. Anything?
This is Colleen. We've done some things like just intermittently sent, some gift cards and thank you notes to staff, at random times, not as a mass email or mass mailing to everyone, but just, again, kind of like you said, that kind of catch being good kind of situation. And that's helped a lot. I think, everybody wants to be valued. And I think it's so hard, particularly right now, when so many of us are working remotely and we're not seeing the staff as often as we used to, either for meetings or trainings or reviews. It's, Zoom, it's hard to do that in group situations. So I've been trying to just send little FaceTime videos to different staff and individually, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback about those. And they're short, 20, 30 seconds, just a thanks and that kind of stuff. So
great. That's great, Colleen. Thank you very much for sharing that, because you're right, those little impromptu moments certainly, put a smile on folks' face. Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, it is tougher right now with folks.
It is. I like your measuring increased retention chart. I think sometimes we forget to really put that down in hard numbers and hard data. We kind of have it in our head, but it makes a difference when you're really looking at it, particularly over time. So I think this is something we'll kind of start using. So I appreciate that.
Great. Thanks, Colleen. Anybody else? Anything?
Our organization also did like gift cards to all the DSPs. They also put out we're proud of you signs in front of the facilities, just so they pass them while they're going in.
Yeah.
We've worked with, we've really had to adjust to a lot of changes in the past 7 months, and sometimes had to adjust really rapidly, and took time to actually talk to each DSP that it involved, just personally, instead of just kind of having it come out. Sometimes things just have to kind of come out, but when we've had opportunities to, we've wanted to talk to people individually. and elicit their feedback and get their ideas, and then follow up and talk about utilized their ideas. I mean, they could see, you know, that we weren't just kind of giving it lip service, but actually listening.
Right. So Dave, just to clarify, were you talking about the signs like just yard signs?
Yeah,
saying thank
yard
you?
signs.
Is that, yeah.
We're proud of you. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. That's great. Good ideas. Thanks for sharing.
One of the other things that I like that the organization does is on your birthday, you get a handwritten birthday card. And I think that that's really special. You know, I mean, the chief. Yeah, by the chief. So, and it's a handwritten card. Note, like there's always something different handwritten, so it's not like a stamp. Oh, I just stamped it and kept going. No, so it makes it feel more personal and like, oh, you know, this person thought about me on my birthday. So I really like that.
Yeah, great ideas. Awesome. Yeah, it is sometimes just the little things that can be so meaningful for folks, and I hope you find that, you know, again, the ideas that we've given you today, the 7 ideas that John shared, as well as the utilization curve worksheet. Again, we're just trying to provide ideas, tools, resources for you to continue to think about your organization. What can we continue to do to make sure that we share with folks and help them understand that we really do appreciate what they're doing, and leveraging Quillo to be able to do that in a way that they know that that's a place and a resource and a tool that they're going to hear from their leaders about, again, the special things that are taking place in your organizations. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Great. Okay. All right. Well, we do want to just give you now just some additional information about our push notifications. You know, last month we kicked off that, you know, we thought we had it ready to go. We ran into a few issues, especially with folks on Android phones. The notifications were not going out the way that they were planned to go. So our tech folks are busy as we speak, still trying to work through all the little glitches that they have to in order to make this all work. With our last update with them, we are starting to see, at least on our team, some of us that have the Androids, the notifications are starting to go out now. But again, we're still working through some of the little nuances with that. So we anticipate that hopefully being resolved by the end of November. So meanwhile, for Quillo videos, we are setting both the text message notification as well as the push notification. So what's nice about the push notification, and that's where we want to head, is the push notification will allow you to go directly to the video and to be able to play that immediately. So that's why we do want to get to the push notifications. Once we get it all resolved, we will go strictly to that particular notification. I don't know about you, but my push notifications is something that I use quite frequently on my phone. And then as soon as that notification comes up, or at the end of the day, I can go to my notifications, push on it, and then it takes me to whatever app or wherever I'm going. So that's why I think it's so important that we continue to work through this with our tech team. So if any of you have any issues or anything that continues to be a problem for you, please let us know. Our tech folks will get right on it, and hopefully we get this push notification all set to go here at the end of November. So that's our update with the push notification.
Is anybody on the call getting your push notifications on your phone?
I get mine.
Okay.
Great. I see some head shaking. Yes. Yep. Great.
Yeah, about
Awesome.
about 25% of people are getting it, and they have to. We're working to fix that within the app. So thank you.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca. She's got a few updates around content.
Great. Thank you so much. This next one, I have to give a shout out to the folks at out of Texas at MHMR Tarrant County. I believe that's Dave, Joanna, Kendra. Did I miss anybody on the call? Yeah, they actually found and came up with the idea to include or to use a teleprompter on your phone when you're recording. So I don't know who of you how many of you have tried recording on your own phone? When I've made videos for Quillo, I know I certainly go through my fair share of videos where 30 seconds in, I just go blah, right? And then it's starting over, right? So it's a bunch of those little takes. So the team in Texas thought, let's use a teleprompter, and found a couple of apps for both iPhone and Android that while you're recording on your phone, you can have the script that you want to use flowing across your phone. You can speed up and slow down the timing of things, so you can even work to get it at that minute. And there's different settings depending on which one that you use. So, and the folks in Texas, if you want to, jump in with anything, I believe this is the one that several of you used for Apple for iPhones. It's just called teleprompter. These are both free. The one that I found for an Android, because I'm an Android user, that I liked the best was called Elegant Teleprompter. Haven't done a deep dive in all the different versions that are out there. So if you're interested, you might just play around and find the one that's a good fit for you. But it does really help with timing the videos and just having the text right in front of you. So
yeah, I've been used. Wow. Okay. I felt really powerful there for a second.
Yeah.
I think, I don't remember if it was Kendra that brought it up first or if it was Matthew. I think it was Kendra though. I really liked it because I looked insane, like I'm writing it down and having to look to the side or up above or below. And it just looks weird. And having the teleprompter right there next to the camera that you're recording on is very helpful. I'm using the teleprompter one for iPhone, and you can adjust the scroll rate. You can type directly into it, or you can import like something into it. Like if you've written out a script on, or just notes on Word or in Notes, you can upload that into the teleprompter app. And you can tell it how long you want to record for, and then you can also adjust the scroll rate, and it gives you like a 5-second countdown before it starts. So you can practice quite a bit to get the timing better. I haven't gotten it great yet, but I've gotten it better. But it is very handy.
Yeah, and you can also turn your camera landscape, right? Landscape. Yeah. You can turn your camera landscape so that way you get a wider picture instead of just the up and down. So I really like it.
So a big thanks and shout out to the team out of Texas for making that recommendation. We'll add this to our tool sheet as well, but just a tip for those of you that are using your phone, if that's a helpful way to go about the recording. So the next piece is each month we like to highlight some moments for self-care. John alluded to this series earlier in the call, but we've worked on with everything going on across the country, from wildfires to hurricanes, whatever it might be. Someone came up with the idea to do a series on evacuation and crisis and how we can be prepared emotionally, really more emotionally and psychologically rather than physically. Obviously, there's ways to prepare physically with bags and whatnot, but also wanted to get to if you're supporting somebody and there's anxiety around, do I need to leave or not? How can you help them? For folks who are managing, the care of folks at work, but also thinking of their own families, right? How do we balance that? So the series is all on the app. There's also a playlist on Quillow's YouTube page. I'll find the link in a moment and send it in the chat shortly. but anyway, there's a handful of videos. So they have come from Karen Harvey. You might have seen some of her videos on the app already, as well as 3 or 4 people out of the START program that have, again, talked about kind of psychologically and emotionally how you can prepare, as well as tips for having a sensory bag ready, right? So if you do need to be evacuated, do you have headphones or things that smell nice or tactile things for whatever the person might need, right? Just some little tips. So hopefully, we hope that it's the sort of information people don't need, but if you do, they're good tips to have in your back pocket. So, and Kevin, I just saw a note from you about a follow-up meeting on creating videos. Absolutely. I'll drop my email in here shortly and be happy to follow up and set up some time. That goes for everybody. If you feel like your team is ever not sure what to do next or stuck or just kind of, want to bounce some ideas around on creating video, we're happy to schedule that time. So an hour is great, but we can do it, in shorter if needed. So, so yeah, Kevin, I'll add my email here and would be happy to be in touch. So
yeah, we did that last week. It was super helpful.
Great. Good. I'm glad it was helpful, Dave. So it's fun to work with everyone's teams as well, because the messages that are relevant for your organization are just that. They're for your organization. So the sessions are always a little bit different for each team, depending on what are the key messages that are needed at the time, but also what are the tools at your disposal, right? Are you working with someone who's super tech savvy and wants to run with it? Or do we need to find some alternative ways to think through, creating these messages and getting people active on Quillo? So we will do our best to meet you where you're at for creating this content. So anyway, that's a new list on self-care I would encourage you to check out. There's a bunch of new content on the app as well, and more coming each week. So. And with that, wanted to highlight next month, this will be our last call of the year. We typically take December with some different formats of updates, knowing schedules can be a little all over the place. So this will be our last call of the year. And we're really excited to welcome Peter Leidy as our guest speaker for next month's Quillo Nation. You might know him from his Coffee with Pete series on the app. So we look forward to a really exciting conversation with Pete. So. Any questions or comments on this or anything else before we wrap up? Great.
Well, as always, we enjoy having everyone with us. We're here to help you with all your questions that you have. Again, I will just reiterate that Rebecca and Kisa do a fantastic job when it comes to creating content. So if you have any questions about any of that, please reach out to us and make sure you ask for assistance. We're here to help you. So again, thanks everybody for your time today. We look forward to seeing you on the 19th of November when we talk with Peter Leidy. He is again, one of our top folks in terms of people love hearing from him with his Coffee with Pete series. So we hope you'll join us next month. Great, you guys all have a great remainder of the week.
Be safe,
We'll see you
be
next week.
well, and take care. Thank you.
All right.